Yo YouTube! This is my video for Wednesday 24th of April, which is today. Quite a lot of stuff to catch you all up on. So let's start off with what I've done work-wise today. So I had this morning a job pre-booked in from yesterday, picking up from Boston, dropping off in Gainsborough, so just a little job. It was for a short wheelbase van. It was 47 loaded miles, and I won that bid off CX for £55, £55, and it was a pickup at 9:30. Excuse me. There were 14 dead miles to get to it, and about 25 minutes to get it from the house. So I left the house about 9ish, just a tad after 9, and made my way to Boston, picked up the pallet, and then got to Gainsborough and was offloaded by 11:30. Okay, so I got there on time, loaded up very easily, offloaded by 11:30. And then a recurring thing happened. I was sort of stuck with no immediate prospect of getting a job. Gainsborough, there was I have not been to Gainsborough really. Before I go on, the actual drop-off wasn't actually in Gainsborough. It was a village east of Gainsborough. But anyway, it doesn't matter. There was no work in Gainsborough, and there's nothing else close by. And what I noticed when I was there was that most of the jobs were coming from Doncaster, which was sort of 40 minutes away. And there's a couple of jobs coming from Boston, back in Boston and Nottingham, which is still quite far away. So I thought, rather than hang around, I would start to drive towards something. So first thing I did was drive into Gainsborough, which was about 8 miles. Went to the supermarket, used the toilet, and then looked for a job. And eventually, I did get a job. It wasn't ideal. I put loads of bids on, and then the first call that I got, i.e. the only call that I got, was a job offered me a job for a small van from Rotherham to Sheffield. No, Rotherham to Salford. And that call came through at 12:34. So it was just over an hour of bidding to get that job. It was 45 loaded miles. I was around about 45 minutes away from the pickup. And I bid £50, £50. It was 21 miles to pick it up from where I was. So in total, there was from my Gainsborough drop-off to the Rotherham pickup, it was about 30 odd miles to pick up the load. So I rushed across to Rotherham, picked up what turned out to be just a box. So my enormous van was carrying a little box. So for the load, actually it was really well paid, but for the mileage it wasn't necessarily very great, because I had to come from a long way away. So I took that to Salford. The traffic was really busy in Manchester. It was going to a hotel in Salford, and it was just stop-start traffic for that last 20 minutes. Eventually I got to the right place, found the right hotel, and when I got inside, one of the concierge people came over to me, and he knew what it was straight away. So he got a photo taken, got to sign my phone for a pod, and I was away. Next job I got called about it at 3:10, and I moved myself. Basically, I started to drive out of Salford, but because it was such stop-start traffic, I could bid on it and use the maps at the same time as being stuck in traffic. So I hadn't got very far when I did get offered a job. Pick up from Lee and then drop it off in Sheffield. It was a long wheelbase job, and I was 35 minutes or so away from Lee at this point. About 15 miles to get to the pickup. For 48 loaded miles, I bid £60, and he asked me what time I'd be there, and I said I'd be there in 45 minutes. So I thought I'd be there at 5 to 6. When I put the sat nav in, the postcode in, it looked more like 40 minutes. By the time I got through the traffic, it was more like 50 minutes. So I arrived at just about 4 o'clock. And it had to be picked up before 4:30. So I had plenty of time to get this pallet. There's a pallet of chalk, lots of bags of chalk. And one thing I wanted to note about this job was it was one pallet, it was quite heavy. It was the maximum load that I could take. It's about 1100 and a bit kilograms. And the thing I wanted to make a note of was Google Maps, which is not what I use for my own navigation. I think it always assumes you're going at the maximum speed for the conditions. And I just think that when you've got a heavy pallet or a couple of heavy pallets on your board, you can't go at maximum speed. You have to be careful around roundabouts and winding roads. So really, you have to be mindful. When I say mindful of the time that you like to get somewhere when you've got big, heavy loads on board. You can't be driving, in my opinion, like you would do in maybe a small van with like a box on board. And I think people generally need to be aware of that. Not only do you need to strap down the loads securely, but you can't go herring around corners. It's just not good for you, your van safety, or the customer's goods. Anyway, my expected ETA off the back of picking up this load was, according to Google Maps, 6 o'clock. So I put in 6:15 just to be on the safe side, and then carefully made my way towards Sheffield. But I got stuck in congestion on all 3 of the motorways that I was using. I think the M60 was one, the M57 was one, I think the M62 was another. I remember got through one set of road congestion, and then came up on the next motorway to another set of congestion. So it was a really tedious journey. I mean, the countryside was great when I got out the motorways, and I went past the Woodhead Reservoir again, which I'm beginning to get to see quite a lot. And I go over I'm assuming it's the Pennines, I might be wrong. My geography is not very good about England. There's hills anyway that you go over. Can't think what else it might be. I'm pretty sure that's Yorkshire, isn't it? Yeah, Yorkshire Dales, maybe. Anyway, so some lovely hills over to Sheffield, and well, it actually says Barnsley. I was actually going into the district of Barnsley, and I didn't go into initiative at the end, so my drop-off was actually not very far past those hills. It was nowhere near the city of Sheffield. It was about 5 or 10 miles to the west. Anyway, I found the pickup drop-off point. Okay, arrived at, in the end, 6:10, and luckily there was someone there to get my stuff forwarded off. Oh yeah, there was a slight delay because I went to the postcode that was given to me in the CX app. I didn't check that against the postcode on the paperwork that was given. The name of the company was correct, but the road and the postcode are both different. So I went to the road and postcode and the app first. They weren't that far apart, there's about 6 minutes difference. And it was just a residential estate. So it's clearly not at the right place because of this pallet to take off. So I used Google Maps to find the name of the company, and it was about 6 to 8 minutes away. And I found the company using the paperwork postcode, which worked. So got there in the end after a bit of a detour. Got offloaded, and the pallet was off my van, and I was off site by 6:30. But that's 3 jobs done. It feels like quite a long day, but it's not a lot of money. It's quite poor money-wise. So let me tell you my stats for the day and then sunrise for the week. On the way out of or through past Sheffield, I've got some extra fuel for the journey back. So I have got an updated fuel price for this week, which is 16.23 pence per mile. Today, by the time I get home, I would have driven 315 miles, 315. I would have worked for 12 hours, and I only would have earned £165, 165. That's made up of £55 from the Boston to Gainsborough job, £50 from Rotherham to Salford, and then from Lee to Sheffield, £60. I spent on fuel today £51.12, which means after fuel costs are accounted for, I've only made £114 net, 114. So another disappointing day. It's 3 days this week have been disappointing. Now I will give you today my weekly summary figures, which are really quite bad, because I'm not going to do any more work this week. So for the 3 days that I've worked this week, I have driven 963 miles. I've worked for 35 3/4 hours. I've only earned in those 3 days gross £590, 590. I have paid for diesel £158.25, 158. And that means that I've made after fuel costs £432 this week in 3 days. My average amount earned per mile is really, really bad. Now this is after fuel is taken off, so if you were to put back in the fuel costs of 16 pence, it's a bit better, but it's 44.83 pence per mile that I've earned. So roughly 60 pence per mile gross. And that means I've earned, on average per day this week, £143.92, so £144 per day after fuel. And then finally, for those people that care about these things, I've worked out my estimated hourly rate, taking off my business costs and working out how much I earned net divided by the number of hours I've worked, and that comes in at probably my lowest ever, £5.36 per hour I've worked this week. That's what I've earned. So just a slight commentary on that. I am very mindful that, as I said yesterday, these figures are not sustainable. I cannot afford to run a business where that's all I earn every day. I have to make some serious personal sort of decisions about what I spend money on, reduce my personal expenditure by a lot, probably more than I can actually do to live off that. So I need to get my operations done on Friday. I need to get back to work, and I need to probably give myself a summary as to my annual expenses and income, and just give myself some idea about how did the first year go working on the CX. And there were good times, but they were more at the start, at the middle of the year. The last few months has been really difficult. Since the new year, so we're now at the end of April, last 4 months have been very tough going. Most of the time I've been on the road. So I need to think about what I need to tweak or do differently to be a bit smarter about earning money with this job. It's still a great job, and I'm mindful that in the last few videos I've been quite negative on the amount of work I'm getting. I do distinguish between the enjoyment of doing the job, which is still great, and the lack of money, which is frustrating. So yeah, we'll have a bit of a break for a few days, maybe a week, then come back to it and see if we've got any different ways of approaching it. If you are there and you're dying to give me some advice, well, I suppose you could do, but I'm probably not going to listen to you. If you tell me something this week, I'm probably going to stubbornly do the opposite. But now I've said that out loud, maybe I'll listen to you. So yeah, I need to think about what I'm going to do. But I'm going to be I'm going to tweaking stuff, not doing anything radically different. And this brings me to the next piece of news, which I haven't yet told my partner about, but by the time I publish this video she will know. So I'm fine telling you guys, and I'll give you a bit of context on this because it's important. It's a big positive for me. If you've watched all my videos, you will be aware that I am separated from my wife, and I have found a new partner, and I've moved in with that new partner. It's been a year and a half we've been together, and throughout that time we've been trying to separate our finances as a married couple, me and my wife. We have got some dependent children still to some extent. Children are quite old, but there's still some sort of liability there between us as parents. And one of those issues was selling the family home. And we've all moved out now. We all moved out months ago. It's been sitting there pretty much empty, draining our finances. The house was going to be sold about end of January, so 3 months ago. And then in the last week it fell through. But I can now say that today, April 24th, we did exchange contracts, and it's now sold and legally binding sale. It will complete next week. I think it's next week, 2nd of May. And so what that means for me is another way, it's another separation from my old life. It releases the equity from the house. So once we paid off the mortgage, divided in half what we got from the house, we'll have a little bit of equity each, me and my wife. And that means we can move on with our lives. We're not going to be rich by any means, but we are going to be a little bit less stressed for money. Money, once this completes, we'll have some choices then about what we do. So in terms of what I want to do, I can not worry so much about having to earn as much money as I used to have to earn for this. I was having to earn money for myself and for my old house and for maintenance and everything else, and it still hasn't all gone, but at least now I have the breathing space financially to not have to worry about money too much for a bit. So that's very good news. It is a massive weight lifted off me, and it is part of me moving forward in my life and moving on, stop living the next bit of my life in a different way with my new partner. Right, so I better get home now and and tell my partner the good news before I publish this video online. Otherwise, she'll probably almost literally kill me if I was not to tell her before you found out. Okay, so thank you for listening to my video. I'm not sure when the next step to be on the road, but next time on the road, I'll do my next video. So, look after yourselves. Farewell, friends.